is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Life on Mars. The fucking UK version, not the American version, Natasha. Season 1, Episode 1. In which a man's being hit by a car somehow sends him tumbling back in time. I don't know how. I don't know why. But, I like this premise. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
And I watched the wrong version of the show the first time, so sorry about that.
Yeah, well, they're going to get a twofer. Look at it that way.
Yeah, sorry. We were supposed to start at 4, and we're starting late because of the fact that I watched the wrong one, so I had to go and watch the British one. And they are almost identical until like the last 10 minutes, and then they are very, very different.
Oh.
So I'm very interested in like hearing from people who have watched both, if anybody has, on whether or not that difference in the end means that the American version from here on is like totally different from the British one, if they use that as a jumping off point for something else, or what. But we will talk about that.
Now I'm desperately trying to remember how this ends and trying to imagine what alternatives are. Like, what did the U.S. version do?
Yeah. So we'll get there. We will get there, my lady love. I had to sign up for BritBox to be able to watch this damn thing. So you're welcome, everyone.
It was weird because Red Dwarf, it offered me the BritBox subscription, but I just bought the episode. But for this, there was no option to just buy an episode. It was like either you're going to fucking do the subscription or you're not going to watch.
Yeah.
So I guess they're really starting to put the kibosh on having alternate ways to watch these British shows because they're really trying to get people to get this subscription box.
Yeah.
Which I may keep. I don't really need to keep it. I can't
There's
really
some
afford
other good
it.
shows on there, yeah.
But there are a lot of shows that I really enjoy watching, and I'm wondering now if they're not going to be on Netflix anymore. They're just going to slowly start disappearing the way the Marvel shows are starting to disappear.
Poirot used to be on Netflix, and then it moved, and I had to get an Acorn membership, but then they like got rid of Acorn, and now it's just BritBox. And when I last checked, Poirot was no longer available to me. So yeah, I think this, and there was another show I saw. Oh, fuck. There's one about a woman detective who's older, and my mother loves that one, and she's like a real hard ass.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, I know. I know which one she's talking about. I can't.
And it's like
called.
bleak.
I know. People say it's really, really good.
I watched like an episode or two, I think, and it was really well done.
Yeah. I can't fucking think of what it's called though.
So yeah, this I want to mention really quickly that while there isn't like anybody who I recognize right out of the gate in the British version, the fucking American version is like a star-studded cast.
Is it really?
The main guy, I don't really like. He looks familiar, but he's nothing. But then there's a bunch of actors who I know, like, who's the guy who I want to get away? I want to fly.
Lenny Kravitz?
His wife, she's Maya. You got to not blow into your mic like that. That was loud as fuck.
What do you mean his wife? His ex-wife or his current wife?
No. I'm sorry. Jason Momoa's wife. The one from...
Lisa Bonet.
Yeah, she plays Maya.
I love her so much. I love her.
Harvey Keitel is the boss in the 70s who beats him up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a really big name for a TV show.
The dude who plays Christopher from The Sopranos, he plays the, like, pain in the ass, like, jokester one.
Really?
Yeah. There's just a lot of people in it that I was like, oh, shit.
They really expected this show to, like, take off and be, like, really be something.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting premise, too. when I was reading about what I was saying to you before we went live is that this show got bought like a dozen times over. There are so many. There's like a Spanish version, a Russian version, a South Korean version, a Czech version. Like it got bought. It's still the South Korean version just happened. Like their last season was 2017, 2018. And what I watched was 2006 or something. And then the U.S. version is like 2008, 2009 aired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It only had the one season in the U.S. It only had 2 series in the U.K. version.
It only had one season in the U.S., really?
Yeah, when I read it, it just, the first season, 17 episodes, and then it never came back.
Interesting.
And they had been trying to get this show made. I think I read they came up with the idea in like 1998. And then they reworked it a couple of different times. With one version, it was going to be almost like a comedy, which is hard to imagine, right? And then an early version was they wanted it to be much more focused on how the times to change culturally, like the way women were treated in the police department in the 70s versus how they are now. And yeah, a lot of potential, a lot of really crazy ideas surrounding what the show should be before it finally came to air.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Because well, all right. So let's start talking about it then. The main character, who is named Sam, he is working on a case involving a serial killer, and they get this guy nailed to the wall. So they think. Yeah. They bring him in for questioning. They have a diary that says that, like, I killed her. She is now killed. I am now a killer. Right. All on like the days that, around the time the murder happened. Right.
You know what? I don't know how it was on the U.S. version, but in the British version, when they're having the interrogation, it's Sam and his partner Maya. Then it's the suspect's lawyer, psychiatrist, and social worker, which we don't do in the U.S. Right?
Yeah. I think it was just his lawyer and maybe one other person besides, like, Sam and his partner. Like,
it had his whole team was there with him in the interrogation, which I was just like, wow, that's pretty impressive. We don't get that here. But then it turns out that in the British version, it's like his social worker. When she hears the date, she's like, oh, no, he was in the intake center that day because something had happened and he was in a lot of distress. And that, he has
some kids threw firecrackers at him.
Yeah, okay, that's exactly what happened in this one, too. Which
well, I'm talking about the UK version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm going to pretty much be talking about that unless I specifically say otherwise.
Oh, okay. So. If you think that he is in the neighborhood and the neighborhood knows that he's mentally ill, then neighborhood kids torturing him, to me, tracks.
Yeah, it does.
Like, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Because humans are trash.
That is true.
Welcome to the show. So yeah, this kid is let off, and Sam is just sort of at this point where he just doesn't even know where to go now, because everything for him leads to this one guy. Yeah.
There's a scene. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and his partner is particularly like, we have to go for this. Like, I'm not interested in what they're talking about with his, like, mental health and whatever. If he's fucking murdering people, like, let's go hard.
And he is not wanting to do that. He's afraid that they're going to get, like, dinged for harassment, right? Like, they can't keep going after this kid who's got this rock solid alibi, and he's mentally ill, and it looks bad for the department. And also, like, you don't realize it's important, but when he's arguing kind of with Maya, and they have some personal relationship that comes out really early, right? That there's something going on between the two of them. And he tells her that he thinks they shouldn't work together anymore on this case because things are kind of messy. But they are in, I guess, the heart of the police station, and it's really barren. Like, it's all really white, and there's not, like, a lot of people at desk, and it's, like, just, a couple of computers, and it's very sterile looking, and she says something to him like, what about your gut? Like, what about listening to your gut? And he, like, gestures wildly to the room. Like, does this look like the kind of place where you can go on your gut? And then when we go back in time, you're like,
yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting, too, because this is one spot, which was a small deviation, but now that I think about it, it's kind of significant. In the American version, the episode starts off with them in the car going to, like, talk to this kid. And he's saying, like, I never said that. And she's like, yes, you did. And they're having, like, a little couple spat. Oh. And they make it really clear out of the gate that these two are involved. And that's, like, a big focal point for when he talks to her later when she goes off on her own and winds up disappearing. And the UK version did not focus on, like, I wasn't even sure that they were going to do that. Once I saw how it started, I was like, maybe they're not going to be actually romantically involved at all in this. And it turns out they are, but they keep that back burnered a little. And I like that choice better just because it hammers home a little bit that things aren't awesome between the two of them. So even though they're having a spat in the American version, the fact that they're having that spat, like, at work over a personal thing about meeting her parents is what it is. It feels a little goofier versus this, where it's like, we're not going to talk about the fact that we're in a relationship until it comes down to whether you should be on this case anymore or not. And that's what our argument is. It's still work related. Right. And makes them feel like somehow more distant from each other, which is apparently part of, like, the problem between them. So I like that better in the UK version. I feel like American stuff, they try and get you emotionally involved really quickly with, like, kind of cheap...
A lot of shortcuts.
Yeah, and it's like, maybe the thing that you want me to be emotionally involved in isn't actually what makes things interesting. And I know that's crazy, but...
Well, I mean, too, it's a weird thing, like, you put a man and a woman in a situation where they work together, and our default is to be like, okay, well, how soon before... they're fucking, or how soon before you find out that they used to fuck, or whatever. Like, we're so trained to, like, look for that and expect it because they just keep giving it to us. So it's funny that they take a show and do a U.S. version of it and then insert that in.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, she leaves and she calls him on the phone saying that she's tailing the suspect.
Yeah, and she mentioned a theory she had based on his diary. That she has, like, she's like, what I'm feeling is that, and that was when he cut her off. Not in the American version. So I'm very curious what that would turn out to be. Like, what, because I feel like whatever it is, she's probably right, and we're going to find out that she was right. But yeah, she's on the phone with him, and then all of a sudden you just hear, and then it gets cut off.
Yeah. So he goes chasing after her, and I don't know what it looked like in the American version, but good Lord, when he got hit, sweet Jesus, that was super graphic. Yeah, I mean, it was very intense. I mean, it wasn't like bloody or anything, but it was like I jumped. I was, it was a lot. He got hit with a lot of force, and I wasn't expecting that. It was almost like a cartoon.
Yeah. And there's a bit of a lead up to it too, which I think is really well done because they have him, like, kind of walk into the street and then he, like, forgets something and he turns around and goes back. And then, so there's a whole thing where you're like, oh man, he's going to get hit. And then he doesn't. And then you think it again and then he doesn't.
Like, he's in his car and he's like distracted and he's not paying attention and he almost, like, slams into one person and stops, like, just in time. And he's kind of, like, recovering from that. And when I was watching it, I was like, oh, is he going to get hit again? But they really kind of teased it. Like, I was expecting him to get hit right away, and it didn't happen. So I was like, oh, they're not doing that. And then he got hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's laying there with his eyes open in this real creepy way. And when he finally closes them and reopens them, he's in like a whole other spot. Mm-hmm. There's trees. Mm-hmm. And he's dressed differently, and it's very clear from the collar right away.
Where we are, where we have landed. Yeah. I love what the show did with explaining where he was and why it looked so different.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cute. It was the, like the fucking Back to the Future thing where you see the big billboard of what's to come. Yep. And it's the expressway that he was on in the present hasn't been built yet. So he wakes up and just kind of like this area that's been bulldozed of sort of preparation for building.
Right.
But it hasn't happened yet. So, and then the fucking, what do you call those cops? Bobbies?
Bobbies, yeah.
Shows up. And he was like, where are you supposed to be?
Oh my God. I was loving, like, this dialogue in particular was identical.
Oh, was it?
Almost identical, yeah.
Fun, because I can't imagine that what a beat cop looked like in 1973 versus to what a beat cop looks like now in America is that different. Or maybe it is.
It looked pretty different, but I can't put my finger on what it was, like, specifically about his look, but it definitely was more...
It was dated?
Yeah, you could tell. He's got a fucking 8-track player in his car.
Oh my God, I love it.
That shit.
This whole thing was so, like, I had forgotten just how much paper he used to use to do practically any job, right? Like, just piles and piles of just fucking paper that you had to go through to find out anything.
Yeah.
Like, even the job I have now, like, when I left the old job, we were practically paperless. Like, we were still generating a lot of paper during the day, but we were also scanning a lot of it so that it would be destroyed within a week. So we weren't keeping lots of paper on file. The job I have now is still keeping practically everything in hard copies. And it's so insane to me. Like, why do we still have boxes filled with paper? It's 2019. What are you doing? So
yeah,
look at it.
What I've heard about your job, they really shouldn't be keeping records of things that could, like, get them in trouble because they're not super good about stuff. Maybe you want to get rid of that.
Yeah, we're keeping all kinds of boxes of evidence.
Right.
But so every time they were at the precinct in the past, I was just getting like a little bit of anxiety with just like how cluttered everything was and how dingy and like
dingy and cluttered are the exact correct words.
Yeah. just
Yep.
And they're just the entire way everything operated was so
lackadaisical.
Lackadaisical. Oh my God. They
just don't really seem invested, which, you know, like the thing is, like, why would you? When everything's on paper, you can say and do whatever you want. There's not cameras on every street corner. There's not cameras built into uniforms. There's not people with phones. There's not a constant, like, 24-hour news cycle on online of, like, following every step of what you're doing.
Right.
And I don't think I ever really stopped to think about how much that forced professionalism into place. And I say professionalism in quotes because it's really just more like CYA pretending to be professionalism.
There's a moment where he is talking to them in the past, and he's asking if they interviewed some people. And the guys are like, no, they're good people. We know them. And he's like, well, did you get a statement? And they're like, no, you're not listening. It's not necessary. And like, that's a thing that would happen. It probably still happens to some degree. But people would just be like, oh, no, I know those guys. It's fine. No need to follow up with them. And that would literally be the end of it.
Yep.
Like, we're done here. I said we're done, so we're done here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I wonder, like, how much that comes from just, like, people understanding a little bit better the fact that anybody could do something like this and that you never know. Because I feel like that psychology has become more understood by a common average person in the last 20 years.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, there was, like, for a long time, we had no idea what the police were doing or anybody in any position of power. We had no idea what was really happening behind the scenes. And we would just take people in positions of power at their word. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's A, B, and C, so it must be A, B, and C. And that's it. That's the entire conversation. And then when we started peeling back a little bit and getting to see, I feel like we were all shocked.
Yeah.
You know? It's a fucking that Dave Chappelle joke when he talks about the Rodney King beating, and when white people first saw, it was like the first time they saw anything on tape. And Chappelle has that skit where he's like, apparently the police have been beating up Negroes like hotcakes. You know, like we had no idea that this, was a thing that was happening until somebody fucking caught it on video.
Yeah. Yeah. So like there's these guys that this girl is like jerking off in the parking lot, and they're just like completely not considering that it's these two. And I suspect that they are right and it is not. Mm-hmm. But that feels like a pretty vulnerable position that she was in with these two guys, which could easily have led to... So maybe, just talk to them about it. But no, they're not even like considering it. And
also, because of what she was doing, that makes her not even worth this extra effort.
Right.
Which, okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So he comes into this office in the 70s and like is acting, of course, to everyone else, utterly insane.
Yeah.
And, even us as viewers who know that what he is experiencing is very real to him are kind of like, can you just pipe down? Because you sound nuts.
Listen,
and you need to like get this shit back under control.
I know that I must be on tape somewhere complaining about characters who acclimate to a fantastical situation like super fast and calling it unreasonable, right? And unrealistic. Here we have a guy who refuses to accept his new surroundings and new circumstances for almost the duration.
Yep.
And by the end, I was like, dude, it's 1973. Let's just get on board with it, please.
Can you just fucking like cope and just move on? Yeah.
So it's so weird because I know I have complained, like, they're acting like this is normal and they're just adjusting too quickly. And he's handling it the way I think is much more representative of how we would handle it. And I was so like, dude, all right, let's just get it together here, sir.
And there's an added like weirdness here too, because what we've seen in terms of time travel ourselves as media consumers, it's a literal body moving through time to another area in time. Mm-hmm. And we know we're there, and we know that they have moved there, and we know that things are a certain way. Mm-hmm. But here, it's mental, and it's mental because he can hear 2006.
Yeah.
Through the television, through like just being,
Right.
So we are aware that all of this is probably just an illusion inside of his head. And we know that. But I still want him to pipe down, even though this is in his own head, and he pretty much like, it's like being like telling somebody to function a certain way in a dream. Where, like, does it matter really? Mm-hmm. Probably not, honestly. Like not the way that it would in Back to the Future, where Marty McFly takes a magical, train/car, whatever. But it's such a strange situation because you keep thinking like, well, obviously, I mean, we know this isn't real, but that like, does that change the stakes,
right,
or not? I can't decide because I keep sort of taking it for granted that this is the kind of time travel I've dealt with before, and it's not. And I keep having to be reminded of that.
I am not 100% sure that he's dreaming this.
So how do you explain him hearing?
I have no explanation. I mean, like, let me rephrase that. Well, there really isn't a way to rephrase it because what I'm thinking is like, is it possible for both things to be true at the same time? Like, is it possible that there is a him that exists in 2006, but there's also a him that is existing back in 1973? And I don't know enough about interdimensional time travel to support my thesis.
You don't say.
But, like, something about it doesn't feel like a dream to me. I don't know.
That's also his question. He feels her hand at the end of the episode, and there's dirt and sand on it because she fell against something as she ran up the steps towards him to the roof. Mm-hmm. And he's like, why would I add that detail? Mm-hmm. Why would my mind do that? This doesn't make sense. I
love that moment where he's like, I'm just going to walk until my brain runs out of being able to create new things for me. Mm-hmm. Also, I meant to find a screenshot of it, but I could have sworn that when he's outside the record store, when we were at Universal, there was where the red telephone booth was. Directly behind it was the facade of like an old record shop. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost positive it's that same street. Like it's supposed to be that street.
Really?
Yeah, I'll have to go look through pictures to see if I can find it.
Huh.
But I don't know why it would be the same street. Like it makes no sense. Maybe that's just a very common thing that the streets, look like. Yeah. But I could have swore there's a telephone booth, then there's the vinyl record store that's like right behind it. And when before he goes into the shop and finds the, the soundproof material?
Right.
I was looking at it like, that's the shot from Universal.
That's so weird. Yeah. I noticed that.
To see if I can find it.
So there is one person who, while she does not believe him, sort of treats him kindly, and it is a woman police officer, constable, who is treated as you would expect in the 70s.
It is pretty terrible.
Cop is treated. Yep.
And it's she has like a, if I understood correctly, there's it's a WPC.
Yes. Women's Police something,
right? But something
Council?
that was something that was like specifically the woman's unit, right? It wasn't like she just happened to be a woman cop. She was a woman cop,
right?
Which I hadn't even thought about whether or not the police force would have been integrated, with women at this time in history in the 70s. I hadn't really thought about it, but I guess it wasn't.
Yeah.
And she has to wear that little skirt, like uniform, like she's a fucking stewardess and not a cop.
Yep.
The 70s were the worst.
There's so much that, so I'm just not going to go down that road at all. At one point, she tells him that she has a degree in psychology because she's trying to analyze what could potentially be going on with him mentally here. And later on, when he wants her opinion, he asks her to come to the front, and she doesn't want to do this.
Absolutely doesn't want to do it. And who could blame her?
She knows. Yeah. And he's trying to kind of just make a point to everybody. It feels like he's just like, well, she's the one and she understands and I'm going to do this and prove to you all. And she's basically like that. I'm not here for you to trot around and make a point later, just I know that this is not time. And just made her really uncomfortable. But she was on board with what he was saying, which was he thinks that because these women who are turning up strangled are not assaulted. They're not sexually assaulted.
Right.
Which is what's kind of puzzling everybody. Mm-hmm.
I also get the feeling, and I could be wrong here, but because I was reading something else recently, that serial killers, the way we know them now, wasn't really a thing in this time period. They were happening, but we didn't have the idea of profiling the way we do now. There wasn't this sort of very common civilian knowledge of serial killers the way we all have now,
Yeah.
So even to police officers, the idea that somebody would be a serial killer is still kind of almost off the table. Seems too crazy to be real,
Yeah. Yeah, so the whole thing is just the idea that these women, that he wants to kiss them, so he keeps their mouths uncovered. Mm-hmm. And if he does that, there has to be something in place to keep people from hearing them screaming.
Right.
And this is where he like winds up thinking over the possibility after the record store with the insulation and the soundproofing. And there's a scene with him and his boss canvassing the area looking for a witness that wound up disappearing.
This was, oh my God. You talk about when he goes and he shows the picture and like like Sam is like, you know, this whole long description. And then the boss,
she's about 120 pounds, 5'2". She was wearing a black wool coat and a faux topaz necklace. His boss can't be bothered.
Have you seen this bird?
Short, skinny bird, wears a coat, lots of gob. Lots of gob. Indeed, sir.
Yeah, there's this thing, too, that Sam... Now, this is interesting and wasn't necessary, which makes it even weirder if this is a dream. In the past, he's been knocked down a rank.
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
true.
In the present, he's DCI, like a detective chief inspector or whatever. But then in the past, he's just a DI, which is just like a regular dude. So I don't know why in your dream would you demote yourself. Like, I'm sure what's happening there.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, what's that about?
So I mean. Yeah, I don't know, but that's the thing that comes up because when he goes round and round and round with these people at the station. At the very beginning, he has this. He's fucking freaking out, and he's like, "This is my station. This is my desk. You know, this is where my chair's supposed to be, and you know, he's basically screaming, "This is my house," and they're all like, "You just fucking got here." And, you know, he's DCI, and they're like, no, you're just DC.
I love, too, that he says, I don't know who you think you are, to which I'm like, dude, pot kettle, maybe back off on that one a little bit.
Oh, God. And they keep really, the other police officers, speaking of people who adjust, they seem to be taking him well in stride.
That's the main thing that makes me feel like it has to be a dream, because if this were real life, they'd commit him. They would declare him unfit. There's no way. No one has tried to take his badge, you know, or remove him off the force or off the case, even though he's pretty much been ranting like a lunatic. Yeah, he's been clearly like a step away from a breakdown this whole time.
And they just drop him off at home. Like, you know, we'll see you tomorrow at the office.
Oh, my God. And home.
Oh, my God. How sad was this little police?
That's so sad.
Again, if this is your dream, why are you demoting yourself and this is where you're giving yourself to live?
In the American version, I listened for it, and I don't think she said this in the British version, but in the American version, she says something about how, and each floor has its own bathroom, so you don't have to share with the whole building. And says it like, aren't you so glad that you only have to share with your floor? And I just, like, my heart stopped because I know that was a thing, sharing bathrooms with a floor of people. Like, that was still a thing in flats that I was looking to rent when I went to London a little while ago. If you had an ensuite bathroom with your apartment, it cost more. But it's just something that I forget was a thing because I'm unwilling to accept that because that's so terrible to me. It's not like they were built like dorm bathrooms where there's like 4 toilets in there and you're sharing, but there's like,
it's just like
it's a regular bathroom. Fucking, you'd have to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be to work on time by 9 because everybody else has to also be to work by 9. So everybody's going to try and have the bathroom at the same time, right? Get up, put your makeup on, go back to sleep for 2 hours.
I just think of like old stories of like old rooming houses in the States where you would get like a one room in a building, but you would have to share a bathroom or something. And that does not sound like any way to live.
I can't barely handle sharing one bathroom with Owen. When I lived with Brendan, we had 2 bathrooms. And I have one now. It was so nice, you know? And if I was in there taking a bath, he could go use the bathroom, downstairs and it was fine. But now, if I'm taking a bath and Owen really has to go, guess who has to get up out of the bath and wrap up in a robe and wait for his ass to be done? So, yeah, no baths, I'm sure. I'm sure those weren't allowed. Or maybe somebody had a schedule organized.
Oh, my God.
But, yeah, so jumping ahead a little bit here with the deal with the older neighbor. This woman is the mother or grandmother. I think it's the mother. No, she's got to be the grandmother of the kid that he is interviewing.
Yes.
In the present.
Mm-hmm.
And she has complained a couple of times about the music being too loud, and then says how, like, whatever she said must have done the trick because you don't hear anything now. And that is what leads him to, like, realize. And I'm going to tell you, like, the American version, what's very different here.
Okay.
Because in the American version, this kid he confronts this little kid and says, like, the kid says to him, "You're the one who took, what's his name away?" And he says, "Yeah, and I know that you really like him, but, you know, not everybody is, like, worthy of that kind of respect. Why do you like him so much?" And the little kid says, "Well, he wasn't afraid of anything, and I'm afraid of everything." And he's in the middle of talking to this, and he's saying this out the driver's side window of his car to this little kid standing on the street. Well, fear is good for you. Fear keeps you safe. Fear keeps us alive. As he's reaching for his pistol on the passenger seat.
Oh.
Like he's going to shoot this child in cold blood in the middle of the street. And as he's reaching for his gun, he hears Maya. And she says, are you okay? I want you to come back because I miss you. I'm here. I'm okay. I'm safe.
Oh,
and
wow.
He is like, "You're safe?" And the little kid is like, "Dude, are you all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm sorry. She's safe, so I have to go." And he, like, puts the gun down and drives off.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well, that's definitely a different direction.
And in the British version, at the end, he winds up standing on the edge of the building like he's considering killing himself. Because he doesn't know what the fuck is going on, and he's at the end of his rope. That doesn't happen in the American version at all. He has, when they go to capture the killer, in the British version, his boss wrestles him and they catch him and just lead him out, and it's pretty uneventful. In the American version, the guy gets away for a second and he goes and chases him down, and they are alone together in, like, this abandoned room, and the guy has the gun up at him, gets a hold of his pistol, and has him at gunpoint, Sam at gunpoint, and tells Sam this is the only way to get home.
Oh.
Right? And Sam's like, "Wait, what? What do you mean by that?" And the guy continues talking as if he never said that one thing.
Oh, that's
and
weird.
And Sam's like, "But what did you mean about getting home?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, he doesn't even remember it for a second. And Sam goes up to him and, like, jams the gun against his chest and is like, "Do it then. Shoot me. Get me out of here. Shoot me then." Oh. And the other cops run in and, like, take the guy down.
Really?
Before he can pull a trigger, yeah.
So, that's an interesting take on...
Right?
Like overall, the consequences are the same. Like, the idea that if I die here, then I'm going to wake up, you know, home. Whether it's suicide by daring this guy to shoot me or jumping off the building. But the difference in those two texts make Sam a wholly different person.
Right.
The British version, I'm trying to remember. There's a scene at the end where they're all running in their underwear, like from the pool.
What?
They're all...
I don't remember this. Hold on, I'm gonna from the poem, to see them talking to the old lady. They find the witness, and she's in that room with all the insulation. He sees the little kid that he remembers that he arrests, and there's just sort of a moment of looking at him and knowing who he is. But he doesn't talk to him, and there's none of that. And then he has the argument with his boss. I'm trying to find running in their underwear. What are you talking about?
I wonder if it started to play the next episode. I don't think so, though. I'm pretty sure this is how it ended. All right.
He's on the roof when it ends.
I'll tell you what I'm talking about in a second. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll find
it. Yeah, it ends with him on the roof and her saying "stay," and that's where credits start. But yeah, they bring this dude in, the killer, and there's a real walk of victory.
Yeah.
But this dude is like, he gets a letter from a doctor saying that he's deeply disturbed, which will lead to him going to a high security hospital instead. And because of the fact that this is all filed via paperwork that is physically handed to people, they can get rid of this doctor's note and make it so that this doesn't appear at trial and isn't a factor.
Right.
Which I find crazy that's something that we could just do, is just but yeah, who's to stop you?
Yeah.
And his boss wants to make sure it doesn't get to trial because, in his opinion, if he goes into security hospital, then he is going to be out in 20 years and he's going to be able to do this again.
And then that kind of, for Sam, makes sense because the timeline would be, oh, he's gotten out and now these murders are starting again.
Right. So basically what it comes down to is, in the UK version, it's asserting that it's the same killer 20 years later and that he is still committing these murders. In the American version, it feels like they are really heavily implying that the little kid took up the mantle and continued on without the other dude. But, there's no, as far as his sentencing, I don't remember them talking about that in the American one. So, but I find that to be interesting that for whatever reason in the British one, they wanted it to be the same person.
There was a moment in the British one where Sam, doesn't he suggest that what if it's more than one person?
Does he?
Uh-huh. And I think it gets kind of
that.
blown off. But oh my God, can you hear that wind?
Yeah, what is that? That's the wind?
That's the wind.
Good God.
But yeah, he suggests that maybe there's two people involved, but it gets kind of like no one takes him seriously. And there's no real evidence to support that.
So yeah, maybe they're both doing the same thing, but they're both focusing on different people in this first episode. And it's both two people. But
yeah, I can't believe I've never heard of this show. It feels like something that I would have wanted to watch at the time, I've
heard of it, and I've had people suggest it to me, but it's been very sporadic. I haven't had a bunch of people all coming at me at once, I
mean, at this time, I was watching that really bad show on ABC about, it had Omar Epps in it, and it was about the people who returned. It was called The Returned.
Oh my God.
And there were two returns happening at one time. You were covering something called The Returns.
From Nina.
Right. And then there was another one on ABC that had Omar Epps, I think. It had Caitlin Stark was in it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The dad from that 70s show was in it. And it was...
What?
It was about people who had died or gone missing, just showing back up. So I was around watching network TV for crazy shows, and this just, I don't remember this at all.
Huh. Yeah, I'm just, because that, The Office is an American beat for beat copy of like the first episode of The British Office.
Never seen it.
It's almost the same exact script, everything. And then they go, completely off. And I don't know if it's just the first episode. I don't really remember, or if like it's the first season that they copy and then they do their own thing.
Right.
But I'm wondering a lot about like the similarities with this one. Like if I got commissioned again, I'd kind of want to watch the
do
British
both?
one and
Yeah.
the American one. Yeah,
I would too.
Although I worry that if the American one is going to do a similar story, but they're going to approach it differently, that I might spoil myself inadvertently by them showing things that the British one saves for later,
That's
like
true.
things like that.
That's true. You'd have to watch them one at a time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever watched any. Like I watched Shameless, and have it's in its 9th season now, and I've never watched the original.
9th season. Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're in the 9th season now, and they probably should wrap it up. I don't think they're gonna, but they probably should. I don't know how long the original ran. I hear it's very good, but I just never got around to watching it. So it's fun that you watch this U.S. version of this. Even
though it was just a fuck up and not intentional.
There are no fuck ups. There are only happy mistakes.
You know what I wanted to mention? The scene with the old lady and the tea.
Okay.
Because when they're questioning her, because I really loved this, and this is almost exactly the same in the American one as well, except she's Italian and really likes Italian pastries, and Harvey Keitel speaks to her on that level of loving Italian pastries.
Okay.
But I really like the fact that they're gonna have, and don't get me wrong, the fact that his boss can just punch him in the stomach on his first day.
And it's fine.
And everybody's just watching like, oh, look at this guy. Yep. Like, apparently that's a thing.
Remember when he comes in when Sam first comes into the squad room and he's fucking freaking out? They're telling him to be quiet, basically, before you wake the beast.
Yep.
Which is, it's nuts.
Yeah. Like, straight up, just like, how is this allowed?
Like, they're all like, when you have it's not funny, but it's like if you have an abusive person in your life and you learn to, like, walk on eggshells around them because you just, like, you're willing to deal with anything except, like, waking them up and having them show up.
Right.
And for good reason, because he is in ill humor when he walks out of that office.
And he, like, gets weirdly, and we don't see it, but he threatens something to the young woman witness.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
But, so we see that, like, him being violent and belligerent and garbage, but then he has this scene with this old lady in which Sam is trying to ask her questions and get some information out of her, and he's pushing too hard, and he's putting a lot of pressure on her and making her really self-conscious and like panicky, and asking things in rapid fire so that she doesn't have time to process the first question before he's like on to the next thing. Like, did you hear something? Were you upset? Did he say something was it his stereo that was like, and she's like trying to even just like register what he's saying to her. And then his boss steps in and is like, what do you think of those pink wafer cookies? The ones you get at Christmas? I love those. And she's like, oh, they're so good, but they're pretty expensive. And he's like, they are. Can you go check the canteen and see if we've got any of those? How about another cup of tea? Don't worry about this neighbor thing. It's not important at all. Sugar? And just completely takes her mind off of it so that she talks about it naturally, as if she's just hanging out and having tea with somebody.
Right.
And it works beautifully.
It does. And it's weird that they would, I guess what they're doing is they're doing the thing where they're like showing us, yeah, he's kind of a piece of shit, but also underneath it all, he's a good cop and he knows how to deal with people. And I guess both can be true. You can be a piece of shit and be a good cop and know how to deal with people. And maybe we were more forgiving of that in the 70s, right? Like nowadays.
I mean, I feel like The Wire was basically that as well. Like, McNulty is a garbage human being. But as far as a cop, he's like You know, one of the best.
But this guy, this captain is also terrible as a cop, too, though, because we see how he treats the other young woman that comes in.
Oh, yeah.
We see how he treats Sam. Like, he punches him several times throughout this episode.
Yes, he sure does.
So it's not just that he's like a terrible person. He's also this terrible cop and abuses his authority, but can turn it off and on, right? Mm-hmm. It knows how to play people or work people. And I'm wondering if the show is trying to be like, see, there is room for both sides in a human being. We're complex, you know, and nowadays in our rampant PC culture, we would never let this guy be a cop. But look how good he can be at it. But I'm like, no, he should totally not be a cop. He should absolutely
really
not
shouldn't.
be a cop.
Like, if your response to a man who seems like he might be mentally ill is to gut punch him, mm-hmm. It feels like you're not super good at dealing with people, even if you are good at dealing with this one old lady.
Mm-hmm. Does Sam ever go back to his car, by the way? Does it? Not in this episode. I don't think he does either.
Mm-mm. Do you think there's something in there?
Well, I know he had like all of his files from the case that he's working in the present time. And I was just, you know, I just thought about it. Because we get a really good look at the interior of the car when he wakes up in 73 and we see like the 8-track and all his stuff is in there. Yeah. And I was just curious about if that comes back. Also him fucking trying to explain what a mobile phone is.
Oh my God.
And calling the operators.
You don't like, and I like the cop too when he comes across him by his car. He's like, well, I was driving a Jeep, and the cop says you were driving a military vehicle, and I was just like,
yep.
What?
Like, that's
you
right.
It
used to be
weird.
Like, that was not a thing that you could just drive on your own. Like, you couldn't just get a Jeep and drive to fucking 7-Eleven. It wasn't how it worked. Yeah.
The world has changed. I feel it in the water.
Oh my God.
I just like, yeah, so I really like this episode, and I think watching both of them was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about how different Sam seems in the American version versus the UK version based on some of the changes that they made. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like UK Sam is a lot more level-headed, and even though he panics when he's in the past, he's still like observing, like he's a little bit removed and able to distance himself and try and look objectively, even like. And the American Sam is a little bit more impulsive, I feel like.
Oh.
Based on the fact that he was going to shoot a child.
Yeah, that's a really big tonal shift, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, he knows that this kid was literally in custody with somebody when this murder had supposedly taken place. So, but he's so sure of himself that he's literally going to kill this child.
And it's funny because at the beginning, well, I don't know, in the U.S. version, when the kid gets cleared, mm-hmm. Sam feels like, well, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. If this kid is knit, then I don't even know why I'm a cop, right? But at the end, he's so sure he's willing to shoot him.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about it in the American version. His partner goes and follows the kid through the park and is saying that she's going to shadow him. And she doesn't say the thing about her hunch with the diary. And I feel like he says something about, because he's on camera somewhere else. He was not in custody. He was playing at like a game at a casino or something. Oh. So he feels like there's a possibility that the timestamps on those tapes were altered. So there's still reasonable doubt in his mind that his story is even true. Whereas in the UK version, they have professionals vouching for him mm-hmm. and seeing him in person. Mm-hmm. So it's a really different scenario, which is part of what makes me think that the American version, they're going to have him be the killer. And in the UK version, they're just maybe going to have it be a lesson that, you know, I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, that's the episode. It just ends with him on the roof and, you know, thinking he might kill himself. And what is the female constable's name?
Oh, God damn it. I can't remember.
Oh, and then there's that scene where he's like in the canteen and he's all of a sudden he hears somebody say, "Sam, can you hear me?" And it's somebody in like modern. My name is Neil. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm speaking directly to your subconscious.
This was not very nice.
What? How is that?
Remember when she ends up telling Sam that this was like they were fucking with him. That Neil is her friend.
Oh, that's right. And she's like, he read your case files.
And Neil is a friend from psychology school or whatever, grad school or whatever. So yeah. Now I don't know if they was really fucking with him, but she tells him when he's on the ledge that they were just fucking with him. But you know what I mean? Like I don't know if she's trying to say that to take him off the ledge, or if they were really being like malicious and just.
I think that she's just saying that. And I guess that's why I reacted the way that you said this wasn't very nice, because you're really taking her at her word that that's what was happening, and I'm really not. Because he says your mobile hasn't stopped ringing. And Sam says on the roof to her, I never mentioned like mobile phones in my notes. So whatever it is that you're claiming happened, that guy was not that.
Right.
He is wearing clothing that's like, you know, it could straddle the line of 2006 or 1970, which is kind of hilarious.
I didn't realize there were outfits that were capable of that, but it turns out there are. I just fucking went to
fucking Williamsburg.
Went to go try to find the girl's name, the officer's name, and the first headline that came up is that fucking the same drama is about to get a Chinese remake. Like people are just yeah, it's a very popular story. Cartwright. Her name is Cartwright.
Annie Cartwright, yeah. So you think that it was them fucking with him?
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So where do you think he said your mobile hasn't stopped ringing?
Well, the thing is, he did a lot of talking throughout the episode about mobile phones, whether he's yelling on the phone at an operator for a number, or, you know, it came up several times. I feel like that information isn't something that'd be so hard to get and pass on to him. So, I mean, if it had been something different, like someone just blurted out his girlfriend's name, you know, like if somebody had talked about Maya to him.
He said Maya. He said Maya is safe.
That's right. Well, how come he doesn't worry about them knowing her name? He's like, oh, I never said anything about mobile phone, but he doesn't seem surprised that they have Maya's name.
Because I feel like he has talked about Maya. He keeps saying like, well, and so he's got Maya, so I have to find him. So like, I feel like he has said that.
So I guess he's just given them enough information throughout this whole time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, just the thing that he was screaming, you know, throughout this whole hour about his damn phone, that doesn't seem enough to me to, you know, be like, how would they know about the mobile phone?
Right.
But there's other things I think that are like the thing that happens with the television, which
her ex could be in the present. It could be the same Neil.
Oh my God.
It didn't even occur to me, but he's like, the time is close enough. It might be the same Neil who went to university with her and now is working in the present in 2006.
I guess it could be. So somebody's going to have to commission this so we can find out. Because otherwise I'm just going to Google this shit. Because it could be, and wouldn't it be funny if that's why if it turns out that he exists in both 73 and 2006, how funny would it be that that's why they have him dressed so it looks like he can be in both worlds? Because he does, you know?
Yeah.
So that clever? I don't know. I can't tell off of one episode.
I can't either. Wow. And I mean, his age is sort of ambiguous there because, like, he had that beard and everything. So he could be like 27, 28. He could also be like 38.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you because I just had that brainwave.
Oh, I don't even remember. Oh, the TV thing. The thing with the TV, I thought was one of the most, like, upsetting moments where he's watching TV and it starts to kind of talk to him. And the guy, like, kind of moves out from, you know, the feet. Like, what do you call that? Like, what is that called? When you move out from, like, the scenery and, like, come up front. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. But there's a moment where the guy on the television screen stops being a guy on TV that Sam is watching and starts being a guy in the TV that is watching and talking to Sam.
Right.
And that always creeps me out. Like, whenever that happens on any kind of show, I mean, I've seen it in other places, but it always has the same effect on me, where I'm just like, oh, God, stop it. Stop it right now.
There was an Unspooled episode where this girl, like, she said that it was, like, you know, a while back when there was still white noise, or there would be stations you couldn't get in completely. And there would sometimes be nothing on other stations, but she'd be able to, like, halfway get in a TV show or something on another station. And she'd put it on for, like, background noise while she was cooking and stuff. And she made something to eat and she sat down and she heard somebody go, "What are you doing?" And she just thought it was on the TV. And then a second later they said, "Oh, you're eating. What are you eating?"
Oh, God.
And she's like, you know, it could have been dialogue, but it freaked me out so fucking bad. And I went and turned the TV off immediately. She was just like, and I was like, yeah, I think that was the right decision. Because even if it was dialogue, got to draw a line somewhere. No, thank you.
This is how you get poltergeists.
You know?
This is exactly how you get them.
My God. Do you remember that episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will Smith's cousin shows up and he's a stand-up comedian?
Yes.
And Smith is, like, jealous and tries to do stand-up himself, and he's really bad at it. That guy makes a joke about Poltergeist and how he says, white people are different than black people because on Poltergeist, the white mama is like, "Oh my God, she's in the TV, what are you going to do?" And he says a black mother would call up her friend and be like, "Girl, turn to channel 2." And that joke wormed its way into my brain. And I can't think of Poltergeist without thinking of that very specific joke from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Which I just don't know why that got under my skin so bad. But yeah, it was just like this. It was clearly an episode just to set up another comedian's career.
It was. That's exactly what it was. And it's funny because that comedian, if I'm not mistaken, they were still, like, best friends well into, like, current times. Like,
really?
It's all right, I don't want to speak out of turn, but if it's who I'm thinking of, you know the rumors. You know the rumors about Will Smith possibly like being gay or bisexual. Have you ever heard those?
I didn't hear that. I did know that they had, like, an open marriage, him and his wife.
So the guy who is often not outed because it was all rumor, but the guy who's often called up in those rumors is a stand-up named Dwayne Martin. Dwayne Martin was married to Tisha Campbell, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that's who plays that friend. I would take forever to, like, fucking go back and find it, but
I'm finding Dwayne Martin right now.
Oh, they're in the news. Yeah. They're trending. That's not good.
Uh-oh.
That's a damn shame. God, every time I Google somebody I like and they're trending, I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, that's so weird. But anyway, okay, so we better wrap this up.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Anonymous for commissioning this for us.
Yeah.
I want to remain nameless.
Yeah, these two were fun. This one and Red Dwarf earlier.
Yeah, very much. So we both were just kind of like, I guess, with what you picked on this and Finding Forrester. But so far, you have not let us wrong.
That's true.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And everybody, if you're interested in making a commission, you can go to unspoiledpodcast.com/shop and do that. And we will see you soon, maybe? Who knows? With a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.